I am Erin Patton, metaphysical master in a millennial age, and it is my life's purpose to guide you and organizations along an enlightened path. So I invite you to sit comfortably and tune in as I welcome you to the Metabusiness Millennial, where we get the real conversations you won't get in the boardroom so that we understand this is exactly the path we need to be on in order to grow, evolve, and thrive. Greetings, I am Erin Patton, also known as Master L, and welcome to the Meta Business Millennial Podcast. I am joined here today by my new brother, my new friend, my new soul family member, Chris Everett. He is so special to me, y'all. I just met this man, mind you, a month ago at the House of Beautiful Business, the Dream Festival in Sintra, Portugal. And I am still like integrating all of the experiences I had in Portugal. And Chris was definitely one of those sparks that just sat next to me and I heard what he was talking about. And I was just like, I literally gave him a thumbs up, and then
you did
there throughout the weekend. And then by the end, we were like, hey, we need to talk. And I'm not going to give too much context because I definitely want you to share your own story. But everyone, please welcome Chris. He's a minister of beauty and it's just a beautiful soul. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be here with you, and I'm smiling, remembering our interactions at the House of Beautiful Business and the ways that there was just a magnetic pull towards each other. It's like, oh yes, there's my sister.
Yes.
I can't wait to get to know you more. And
yes.
I'm so glad that we took the initiative to really get to know each other deeper. And I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for this beautiful invitation.
Yes, I received that in full. And, we talked a little bit, and I just have to acknowledge that you're a Texas boy. You grew up in Texas. I grew up in Texas.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, Texas has, I would say, maybe a good and a bad, maybe equally reputation around the world. People are just like, Texas, like, don't y'all ride this? And there's so much culture here. There's so much depth here. And I feel like, we don't always get to express all of that. So I would love for you to go into just a little bit about your upbringing in Texas and how maybe that's informed where you are today or who you are today.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So I was born in Austin, Texas. And when I was maybe 5 or 6, we moved to Houston, where I believe you are now.
Yes.
And did my whole growing up through high school in Houston. And then I went to college in Dallas as a piano performance major at University of North Texas. And then started my career in the advertising agencies in Dallas before I come up to Minneapolis, where I am now.
Okay.
And I don't have any. I suppose all of our homes inform our vocabulary and our flavors, and there is something about Texas, even though I left as soon as I arrive in Austin, however long I'm gone, there is something about those trees and how they meet the sky and how they hug the ground that just feels so much like home. It's just, It's ingrained in me, in my DNA. And I think two of the biggest influences, if I think about it, one is religion. Grew up in an evangelical community, church-going family from the very beginning. I started playing piano when I was 5 years old.
Yes.
And started playing in the church when I was in junior high. And I loved, that was our community. And what else can weave a community together so tightly than singing together and making music together and worshiping together and going through the ceremonies of birth and death and all of that together. It is an extraordinary thing.
Yes.
And I don't know if you experienced the same thing, but also ancestry. Um, I have there is such pride in the land and the place and who we came from. I actually am a direct descendant from William Barrett Travis from the Alamo, if you can believe it. And one of my very best friends is Billy Crockett, who is a direct descendant of Davy Crockett.
No, don't play with me. That's
I'm not
hilarious.
even kidding. I know
That's amazing.
we were dear friends for about 10 years when this came up, and we're like, wait, what? It's bizarre. And you know the pride around that in Texas.
Come on.
I know.
Remember the
I know, it's crazy. There are some other things to remember too.
Right. A lot of
yeah,
things.
a lot of things. But I don't know that I've ever talked about it out loud, but I have always had such a very, very keen sense of ancestors around
Wow.
me,
Wow.
supporting me, walking with me.
Yes.
And as I've become more aware of consciousness and vibration raising and connecting deeply in the ways that we honor and invite our ancestors, that it's like they've always been standing right here and are stepping closer, and the voices, it's like the radio is tuning in, and I can hear them clearer and clearer, and so there is a sense of deep connection with that land. And my husband and I now own a 57-acre farm in western Wisconsin,
Mm-hmm.
which is this is our 11th year as an arts nonprofit there, and that is all informed by growing up with my grandfather. My whole mom's side of the family, he was a Texas cowboy, cattle rancher, and every morning when I walk my land, I feel him walking right next to me as we husband this land together, and care for the people and care for the earth and care for the animals. And I feel an honor and a responsibility, but completely supported by my ancestors, and a connection to this land and that land that I grew up into. Long answer, I apologize, but
That's
it's
a
very rich.
I mean, rich, resonant, deep, profound. It was really beautiful how, I mean, as a minister of beauty, how you narrated that your
Mm,
childhood into your present moment, and weaving in also the aspect of the past into the present, moving you into the future.
mm,
And for me, I feel like that's what we're being called to do now,
mm.
because for so long we've carried the burdens of our ancestors, at least in my
Yes.
experience, and um, the pains, the weight, and now it's time for us to, in many ways, kind of relinquish that and rise together. And I feel that
Mm,
energy even
mm.
too, as you talk about walking alongside your ancestors and bringing them along as we rise and ascend into this new earth paradigm, which we're all collectively creating, and what
Yes.
they've desperately been waiting for us to do, because in many
Hmm.
ways they didn't have the conditions, they didn't have the education, they didn't have the container, they didn't have all that we have today to make that possible. So that's beautiful.
Mm, yes, I love that very much.
Mm-hmm.
I am. Uh, I became a part of a program that was created by two remarkable teachers and guides and shamans, Wendigo, Kenny Linton, out of Abiquiu, New Mexico, and
Mm.
Kyoko Seki out of Japan. And
Yes, yes,
they created a program called Healing Between Worlds.
yes,
Um, Kyoko is a part of an organization that helps people who have been human trafficked. And it is one thing to take young girls who have been sex trafficked out of just unimaginable circumstances. And it is another thing than to lean into some kind of healing. And there's
mm.
healing on, so many levels,
Yeah,
including the ancestral level, your women's line, men's line, whole
yes,
stuff, all of these things. And so they created this extraordinary program, and they're beginning to bring it globally. And part of what I love about it is it is all gorgeous energy work, teaching people how to touch into energy and spirit and the gifts that we all brought into this lifetime from our ancestors as us as a young child, through our men's line and our women's line, and that the universe have given us this incredible dream of life. And it is all right here. And through very luxurious listening and some beautiful ceremony, revealing these beautiful gift seeds so that we can really lean into the wholeness of who I am. I am this. And it's called Journey of the Gift Seeds. I was just trained and certified to be able to lead it. I just led my first one with a friend last week, and it was gorgeous. But the second part of it gets to your point, the power of 8, which looks at the incomplete seeds. What are the traumas, the narratives that our ancestors and our women's line and our men's line were not able to heal or end or break in their lifetime? And how do we do that? And there's a head way to do it, but there is a spirit way to do it, and a calling forth of your ancestors. And so it is hard, beautiful, and very, very intense hard work. And at the end of each day, there is a ceremony that is woven together through Japanese, Native American, and Celtic traditions to break this, to stand up. And I had a sense in one of these ceremonies of standing with legions of my ancestors, which then, of course, are all connected to the legions of your ancestors.
Yes.
And everyone's ancestors, and all of this standing there, men with hats on their hearts, saying, thank you for being the one in this generation to stand up and do this.
Yes.
We're standing with you. And when you are able to break this and heal us, that allows our ancestors then to step in even more to help continue to heal everybody else. And so there's that rippling, and I'm like, oh, I love it.
Yes. And I just have to say this because it's on my heart, because when you paint that picture, I just also imagine too our galactic family. And that's the aspect of family that rarely gets acknowledged, because we're always so earth focused. We're thinking about our earthly family. Yet we also have so many light workers in our galactic family that are right there too. And those are actually the families that are lifting us up. All of us that are here on earth, the light workers, the spirit guides, the archangels, the ascended masters, all the folks that we talk about, like Jesus, Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, all of these beings are also waiting to welcome us and our ancestors into this new age, this fifth dimensional existence and beyond. And I would love for you to speak more to your work, because this is the Meta Business Millennial podcast. So we got the business of what we do, because it's just so amazing that we get to do what we do, because it's work, but it's really light work. Like it's really fun. It's playful. It's healing. And so when I ask you about your work, I don't even really feel like I'm asking you about your work. I'm just asking about what are you doing to build community with this arts nonprofit that you have, and how are you guys sharing that with the world? I mean, you have these beautiful pieces behind you. I'm sure your ranch is stunning. And I mean, tell us more. What's the name of it? How does it start? Like, I'm very interested.
Oh, thank you for the question. Our farm and foundation, it's called Everwood Farmstead Foundation, and everwoodfarmsteadfoundation.org. You can read all about it. This was the land told us this is what it wanted, truly. My husband and I bought there 13, 14 years ago. We have lived a very urban life, downtown Minneapolis. We were craving land and some space, and it's a very lake cabin centered culture here. And we wanted land, and part of this came from my own growing up in Texas with wild, sprawling prairies and animals. And we thought we were going to build, and ended up visiting this farm in the driftless zone of Western Wisconsin. And the driftless zone is a very special area. When the glaciers came through, it flattened out most of Wisconsin, except for this little swath that kind of goes from the west down to the south that it missed. And there's just these huge, bucolic, beautiful rolling hills. They're just full of
Yes.
energy. Oh, they're
Yes.
beautiful. And we started looking in that area and wanted to see this barn. It's a very special barn. It was built in 1914 out of California redwood, if you can believe it.
Oh.
It makes no sense why the redwood would be there. And literally the minute we drove onto the property, it took our breath away.
Mm.
Something was it was calling us. And as we were renovating and as we were cleaning the barn, it's such a church-like space. We knew something needed to happen here around community. Both of us are very arts-centered. I am an artist, musician, painter. My husband is an ethics director for a major big box retailer, and is a lawyer by training, but has been on many, many arts boards. And the reason that we wanted to focus on the arts is we believe when our artists are happy and healthy and nurtured, it's good for everyone.
Yeah.
Their job is to find fresh language for the human experience every day.
I love that.
And right now, language is failing us. We try to be in conversation and that turns into rhetoric, and we don't know how to take on the big tough things. We just end up, feeling defensive or othered or single dimensionalized. And yet maybe a poem or a dance or music or a play can help reorient us to the hard things. And that's where healing can happen and reweaving can happen. And 11, 12 years later, after the foundation was formed, we have come to really understand that we're in a very unique position and that we're only an hour basically from the Twin Cities and the other big cities in Wisconsin. So half our audience are urban and half are rural. And in a time when we have all these bubbles of us and them and right and left and all the way religious and all the ways that we other each other, how do we actually get in the same room and remember all the ways that we are so much more dimensional than that, and actually, in fact, more alike than we are different.
Yes.
So that we can start finding each other again, to remember the ways we are connected, to literally remember.
Yes.
So as this has grown, my work shows up in two different ways. In the Arts Foundation, as Minister of Beauty, we've recognized that this is a sacred space, and I hold it as such. We are all together just for that night. It's not recorded. It is only for those people, for those musicians, for that moment in a very intimate space. And because the goal is for us to reweave each other back together again, I do a little experience design before every single performance to help us remember what that feels like. So for example, we had an extraordinary musician come play, Nachito Herrera. He's a extraordinary Cuban pianist, jazz, every kind of jazz form, classically trained as well. I can't even believe that we got him to come perform. That particular week, and I don't even remember where this was, but there was a shooting in El Paso that was
I remember that.
heartbreaking.
I remember
It was
that.
like on a Monday.
Yeah.
And that whole week, both Bill and I were just, our hearts were just like literally aching. And that Friday, we listened to an NPR piece about the impact and the families and everything else. And we were just weeping in the car. And I posed the question to Bill, we have a show tomorrow night. We have a group of people that are coming that I imagine are also hurting for a lot of different reasons. And of course, social media is stirring everything up. is this space a space for us to take this on together, or is this space where we go away to get away from it?
Mm-hmm.
And I chewed on that for like 24 hours. And before the show, I realized this is the space that we need to take this on together, but maybe in a different way. So that night, the audience came in. Welcome everybody to Everwood. We're so happy you're here. This is, to be honest, this has been a really tough week. Have you been feeling it too? All heads are nodding. I said, I have a question for you. What is it that you need tonight from Everwood and this community? Do you need a cookie? Do you need nature? Do you need a hand on your back? Do you need camaraderie? Do you need joy and beauty? Do you need to cry? What do you need from this place tonight? And everybody was quiet for a moment. And I said, great. We're going to have an intermission in about 45 minutes. Will you please tell the person sitting next to you what it is that you need? And so there was some conversation back and forth, stranger to stranger. During the intermission, would you find that person and make sure they're getting what they need?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is not about guns. It is not about immigration. It is not about the why or the who. The thing that unites us is I'm hurting.
Yes.
And let's remember what it's like to be neighbor.
Right.
Do you have what you need? Let me put a hand on your back. Let me go get you a cookie. So that we're going through this together. And so it is those little simple things, having everybody hum before a show until we choose a note, which they always do. And then we harmonize to that. We know how to sing. We know how to remember. It's inside of us. And so that's what the Arts Foundation is about for all of us, to nurture our artists, to give them what they need, because they will help nurture us right back and then give us new language to find each other again.
Yeah. I love that.
And then in my personal work, my background is as a designer, a graphic designer, went into brand strategy, kept asking why, is it true, which went into culture design and then leadership development, and then recognizing that I had to do my own journey as well.
Yeah.
In leadership development.
Yeah.
And this is all of this is individual work first, all of it. Healing begins with each of us as individuals, and then
Period.
it is community, or then it is organization or company,
yes.
or whatever it is, team.
Yes.
It has to start with the individual.
Yes.
And I had a quest many years ago. There was an introduction to medicine wheels and ancient wisdoms and teachings that blew my mind. I'm like, this is what I have been looking for. Yes, this is it, because it is deeply practical, but also full of the magic and the mystery and the ancestors and science and the universe and relationship and ceremony and ritual. And it is an embodied practice. It isn't a head practice.
Yes.
It's just rung all my bells. And what I was introduced to, what I was invited to by the Woods on that quest was to stop doing so hard, and explore being.
Yes.
Which I know resonates with you. We talked about this.
Yeah.
I'm a Capricorn. I'm the goat. I'm the climber. I'm a master manifester. And literally when I got into the Woods, I looked up, I'm like, where am I supposed to climb? And what I heard was, stop climbing. You don't have to climb anymore. You deserve to rest, sit down. And I sat by this creek and I kind of wept. This relief, the sense of, God, I don't have to push. And this invitation to consider being. Well, my little goat mind immediately went to, well, what am I supposed to do to be? What is this? And what we forget is this is a long journey. It took me another 3 years to really understand a framework of what doing versus being was, what actually was the invitation. And this is the simplest way that I'll lay it out, and then I'll leave some space. There is, over the course of life, and I'm using this framework now for my business, for my clients. I'm developing programs to offer individuals, to offer artists, to offer leaders, to offer anyone who wants to learn some tools. Basically, it all comes down to this. Over the course of a lifetime, there is an outer journey and there is an inner journey.
Yes.
And culturally, we focus mostly on the outer journey because that's the thing you can measure. It
And
is
you
the
can
doing.
see with the eyes.
Yes. How much money are you making? What is your title and your status? How big is your house? What am I accumulating? How much am I making? How big is it? All the rest of that, the doing. Often we are not taught what that inner journey is, but the inner journey is being. That is the being work. This is where wisdom lives. This is where values live. This is where we deal with our traumas, the healing, the narratives, the things that you were speaking about earlier, how to touch into our ancestors, how to touch into spirit, consciousness raising. All of that is in the vertical space, the inner work, the being. And here's the magic. When you do the inner work, the being work, it transforms doing into becoming.
That part.
Yes. So now there's a dance of being and now becoming. It's transforming how I show up in the world as a husband, as a friend, as a community member, as a leader. I am now evolving. I am transforming as a human being when I do my inner work and my practice and I take on my dragons. And this is another whole other discussion. Being is the sacred feminine and becoming is the sacred masculine.
Yes.
And this is how those energies live inside of us. And so if we think about our work, going to an organization, this is a living organism. And there are individuals, leaders, and everyone in this organization that if you're really interested in thinking about vision and what are we making and where are we going, are you doing the inner work? Are you considering your being? And let's investigate that, learn how to listen again, remember. I feel like and it's interesting the way where you started, that this is about homecoming.
Yes.
This isn't a new thing. We know it. We've just forgotten it. We've wandered away from home. So let's come back home.
I love that.
Back to center, back to divinity, back to true self, back to our real I am, and then go back into becoming. Now we are manifesting and becoming in the world in a completely different way.
I love it. And not only are we manifesting and becoming and being, but we're doing it beautifully. Because just like you said to start, the beauty is the expression of the divine, of the divinity. And so everything that you say, all those words that you put together very nicely resonate so deeply with me. And I have to go back because I just have to, and then I'll make my way up forward to when you were talking about your collective celebration, and you called it a remembering, when y'all were honoring what was happening in El Paso and just being present. Because I love to break down that word, because people really don't understand etymology in general, because we just aren't really taught it. And English in and of itself is just such a broken language, but we're gonna, work with what we got. And in remembering, the member in and of itself is a part of the body. And more specifically, it's like the male member, like the penis. But when you're remembering your parts of your body, you're putting together your body, you're putting together the human collective body. So when you're talking about remembering who we are, we're putting ourselves back together. And because we've been in many ways separated, we talked about this, divided, prejudiced, discriminated. And so in order to remember, we're not only remembering who we are in the conscious sense, but we're also putting the pieces back together in the remembering and the connecting. And so I love that you talked about that remember, because I was just like, We're doing it again. We're putting ourselves back together again and again. And we keep doing it until we're, and it's infinite. It's infinite work.
Yes.
And I love that
Mhm.
you talked about it starts with the self, because that's always what I talk about in my meta business journey, and why meta business became such um it is of course my calling from God. However, I answered the call because it resonated with me so deeply, in that I felt so disconnected from myself. I was trying to I mean, I went to Harvard. I had two masters from
Mm.
Harvard, two undergraduate degrees from University of Texas. So overachiever at its finest, okay? Ego on 1,000, okay? And so so you couldn't tell me nothing. You still can't, but back then you really couldn't. But at the end of the day, it was all an outward expression. I wanted
Mm.
everyone to know how smart I was, intelligent, beautiful, competent, wealthy, all these things. And when in reality, the being, if you will,
Mhm.
was lacking. So the becoming, the masculine was just, and we
Yeah.
live in a very what people call toxic masculine world, but in reality, it's just a dominant masculine world, and that the feminine
Mhm.
is just very, for lack of better words, repressed. And so I'm living fully in this masculine and expression, and not really tapping into the being of myself, of my feminine energy. And so in my healing journey, that's what I've come to really embody and embrace and love, is that divine femininity. And even talking to God and Goddess, my mother and my father God, because I always grew up with Father God, very similar to you. I was in a Catholic
Mm.
church. I was an altar server, I was a lector when I got older. Like, I was just in it to win it. Like, I just love God, but really, as much as I could in that space, yet it was
Yeah.
always in a masculine presentation. And so now that we're moving more into this space of balance, then we're coming to see the importance of that being, and how little almost that becoming can matter if you don't have that sense of being. So I'm so grateful that you shared that like
Mm. Thank
that.
you. I love that so much. It, I've been reading there's so many beautiful, I love it right now that there's so many incredible organizations out there, and light workers and people like yourself that are bringing this into the fore. And I think that there's a real hunger for it. There's a yearning for it.
Yearning, for
I
sure.
keep hearing over and over in friend conversations and coaching conversations, just an unease, a dis-ease,
Dis-ease. Come on now.
right? With how the world is and how we are in the world.
Hmm.
And the two words that keep coming up are disconnection and separation, and
Yes.
which you just mentioned. And the center of the philosophy of bridging healing between worlds is healing separation.
Yes.
And the ways that we are separated from not only each other, but separated from our true self,
That's it.
separated from nature. But I think
Hmm.
you also named another really interesting separation, which is the separation of sacred feminine and sacred masculine.
Yes.
Um, I and all of this, there is there's a beautiful invitation in the beginning of the journey of the gift seeds, that we all know what that separation feels like in our daily lives, in our body. We see it all around us. And there's a beautiful mythology that lives in a lot of different cultures called the myth of the first world. And the first world was a time when we were all one, everything. You are floating in the ocean, and you are also the ocean. The fish is swimming by, and you are also the fish. You are by the mountain, and you are also the mountain. And we are under the stars, and we are also the stars. We were so connected and deeply one that we didn't even need language.
Hmm.
And we have a memory of that. I think all of us have a time in our lives when, you know, maybe as a little child, you're out in the ocean and there's this moment of like, oh my gosh, I am all of this. I am the whole ocean around the world all at once, or you're walking through the woods. I think sometimes love can feel like that first world where it's just like, you and I are, we are the same. We are one. We're so deeply, deeply, fundamentally connected. And in those rememberings, it is the beginning place of touching into that higher consciousness. That it is not only possible, that actually is home.
Yes. Yes, I love that so much. And in that home space, in that connectivity is where we really find our divinity. And I love that you talked about coming home, because that's just such a simple way of putting it, that you know, we're home with ourselves. And home is sometimes a place, when we think about like our childhood, for example, for me, it was not necessarily, you know, a place I wanted to come back to. Hence why when I got the chance, I booked out of here, you know, as quickly as I could, as far as I could.
Yeah.
And really, I remember my dad used to say, like, you know, Erin, you know, when you I don't know if I'm going to quote it right, but he'd be like, you go, you look in the mirror and you turn around and you're still there, you know. You can't run away from yourself, you
That's
know.
great.
And it is so good, because I ran so much. Like, I spent much of my a decade running from myself, from my past, from who I was. And interestingly enough, that's actually part of the journey. So I really want to implore whoever's listening and you feel like that's where you are, it's okay. That's good to be there. At least you're aware of that. Okay.
Yes, right.
Yeah. And on top of that, like, understanding and understanding that, like, as you're going through that, you know, exploration, that you have to lose yourself in order to find yourself, right? You can't
Yes,
find what's
right.
already there. Like, it's already there. You have to lose it to find it. And interestingly enough, like, when I think about our soul journey, I saw this recently, and it brought me to tears, because,
Mm,
and it gives me chills now, but thinking about like our soul, our consciousness before we enter that womb, you know, it's maybe a myth or whatever you want to call it, that we're shown our life. And we
mm,
agree and we make contracts with other souls that, hey, we're gonna go through this together, and we're gonna get out, you know, we're gonna get back to God, you know. So in
mhm,
many ways, we choose the separation. However, when we get here, in the process of all the things of developing our baby brains and this prison
mm,
matrix and traumas, we forget the contracts we made with ourselves and with the
mm,
other people. And it's that through that journey that we remember, we put all the pieces back together, and we come back home to ourselves and was like, I actually chose this path, I chose this life, and I chose the separation so that I can feel even more deeply connected. And that's
mm,
like the key, is like, now that I've gone through this journey, I'm even more deeply connected with this earth, with this planet, with this human beingness, if you will,
mhm.
and this whole idea of life in and of itself. And so, man, like that home, it means so many things in so many ways.
I'm curious how, because I had a similar uh, understanding as well. That moment of like, oh yeah, we signed up for this journey, and you know, as I don't know who coined it originally. Life is a school, and the lesson is love.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is a lesson in love.
Mm-hmm.
When it is gone, when you don't have access to it, when you are so completely enveloped with it, when it is needed, the abundant, all of it comes down to a lesson in love, which in
Mm-hmm.
many ways is a lesson about separation and deep connectedness. But
Yes.
I wonder for you, when you had an awareness of, I have signed up for a course of in the school of this life and this lifetime, how it reoriented you to your life journey.
Mm. Thank you for asking me a question. How it reoriented me, because I signed up for this. I feel like that's a question I have to ask myself and those are things I have to remind myself of daily, because in the day-to-day walk of life, it's very easy to lose that awareness. Very easy. So
Yeah, it is.
we definitely have that awakening when we're in Sedona, when we're in Sintra, when we're in these beautiful places. It's really, or at your ranch, I'm sure y'all have those moments where it's really, or you're floating in the ocean, so obvious. But like me, I put my business out there. Like, or when you're in a lawyer's office dealing with some bullshit, or when you're in court, or when you're negotiating because you feel like you got fucked over, you know what I'm saying? In business, like, so put it back into like this work life perspective, when you're in the grind of what you think is the work, that's actually when you have to remind yourself, like, hey, I signed up for this lesson. Like, I signed up to understand what it's like to feel deeply, because it's in these experiences for me, like the court battles, the legal stuff, because I'm dealing with custody issues with my child and things like that, that I am in a lot of pain. Bit ton of pain, because I don't think the legal issues would be so bad if there wasn't a little one involved. It'd just be like, I'm saying, like, this is just, what I have to do, pay the bread, I'm done. However, when you're dealing with someone else's life and there's all these other, variables, then you feel it so much more deeply. Man, it hurts.
I'm so sorry.
It hurts.
I'm sorry.
But that's when we have to, go through those waves of emotions and understanding, okay, there is that the sympathetic part, that grief part, and that anger part, and the shame. Oh, I can't believe I put myself in this situation. And it's literally that wave we have to ride, like a surfer, like anyone, like every day. And like you said, I have to remind myself, Aaron, you signed up for this. Aaron, you said you used to pray. I used to pray to God when I was a little girl. I want to change the world, God. Help me change the world, God. Why a little girl pray like that? That was my prayer every day.
Yeah.
I wanted to be president of the United States. I wanted to do all these great things. I wanted to be CEO. These were like little girl dreams. And I ended up as an adult doing all that I thought I needed to do, going to Harvard, all that bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like doing all that become becoming what I thought and knew, actually what I knew as a child, I already was. I already knew, God, that you were going to help me lead. I already knew, God, that you wanted me in these places. So now that I'm here, why am I crying? Why am I sad? Why am I grief stricken? When God's like, Aaron, you wanted to be a leader? You need to learn this legal system. You need to learn this system, sister. You know what I'm saying? And I wasn't going to go to law school. I actually did take the LSAT and I decided not to go to law school. So God was like, you're going to learn this system. And not only are you going to learn it, you're going to feel the pain that so many people experience, like how I did it when I was a kid. My father in prison, 7 years, federal prison. 6 years old, going to visit him every other weekend, 5-hour drive.
Oof.
4.5-hour drive.
Wow.
7 years. You know what I'm saying? You're going to feel this system, sister.
Yeah.
If you want to heal it, you got to feel it. So that's why the consciousness, when you ask me about that question, like when you have that awakening, how do you stay there? It's a daily ting. Like that's what it's a daily grind. And I wouldn't say grind, it's a daily practice, if you will. It's a daily exercise and feeling into my emotions. I spent so much of my life numb. I spent so much of my life numbing myself, drinking, partying, whatever, sex, whatever recreational drugs. And like, it's just like to escape. Like you were saying with your group, do we escape or do we actually deal?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so the answer is you got to deal to heal, period.
Yes. This is not intellectual work. This is feeling work.
Feeling.
And, and it sucks sometimes, but it is feeling work.
Yeah.
I had two different thoughts. I'm sure that you have the same, but I found the only way that I can do it is having a daily practice
Yes.
every single morning. And that can mean whatever it needs to for anyone, whatever is relevant and meaningful that you can touch into something.
Mm-hmm.
That I have my morning practice to remember who I am and what I am called to in this
Mm-hmm.
life, and that my
Mm-hmm.
ancestors are here, and that I am girded and clear and supported so that I can step into the reality of life
Mm.
centered and supported.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the medicine tools is called the Wheel of Appreciation. And basically,
Mm.
it is whatever is happening now. If this were a gift, what would that gift be?
Yeah.
How might I see the lesson in it? I went through a really hard, kind of disastrous business thing last year, and I came out just so wounded. And a year later, I realized, oh my God, thank God that happened.
Yeah.
It propelled me into it. The universe somehow saved me from something that I was not right. And two, what I learned and how it propelled me to where exactly I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes with you're right. You have to go through the fire, and the fire is going to burn
Yeah.
you, and you're going to learn so much.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, my one of my sister mentor reminded me not to think of myself first. For example, I used to think of myself too in that phoenix sense I had to burn to emerge. And
Yeah.
she wanted me to reorient my um experiences more and liken it more to a transformation like a butterfly. So
Mm.
you're actually just morphing, like it's actually called a blue morpho, the butterfly. And you're actually just, reconfiguring your system, if you will. So our DNA is, when you think about us as biocomputers, our DNA is wired for like disaster, like, like, I mean, period. Like that's just the matrix that we're in. That's just how the baseline system program is. It's just baseline, fear, trauma,
Yeah.
anxiety. And we have to essentially just like upgrade ourselves. And in order to upgrade ourselves, we have to go through these emotional, if you will, programs, or these
Hmm.
have these emotional apps, if you will, that really enable us to awaken other aspects of our heart, of our software, our hardware, our DNA system. And because how many times have we heard scientists say like we have massive amounts of junk DNA? Well, in reality, it's just not activated because we're only using such a small part of our consciousness. Yet as we start to awaken, we're activating new aspects of ourselves and we can be more creative. That's why I love the work you're doing, because
Mm.
artists really reside in many ways at sort of the higher realms of this existence, and being fully expressive in their work and in all that they do. And interestingly enough, I always wanted to go to art school and design school. I very much consider myself an artist. Like I remember being in business school and the teacher being like, "Who in here is an artist?" And I like raised my hand like so fast.
Me.
And I never raised my hand in class. Like never like was eager to raise my hand. So everyone like looks, it became like a thing because it was such a moment. But anyway, like I feel like in terms of that artistic expression and having that ability to abstractly, like you said, poetically, or movement, express ourselves, like that takes courage, first of all.
Hmm.
That takes
That is a
courage.
major act of love just in itself.
Yes, and an act of love. So even higher than courage, it's a love act. So
Mm.
I know we're probably coming up on time. I haven't even looked at the time. I would love for you to speak more to maybe what you vision for the future of your organization and how you see artists being able to move and breathe and thrive, after they've gone through, what you all offer.
Yeah. Thank you. I. It's so interesting. After we had our 10th anniversary, we prototyped. We had a bit of a seed of a dream that arrived, and we prototyped and played and invited and listened really hard for about 2.5 years before we actually formed the arts nonprofit and created a vision and mission and all the rest of that, created a board. And we had 3 pursuits, and it took us that full 10 years for all 3 pursuits to completely activate and hum like little engines. We talk about our mission is to host inspiring spaces for artists to perform, teach, and work in a natural environment. And the Perform is our artist series, performance series, Teach are our workshops, and the Work is our artist retreat. And we are hosting this year about 28 artists from, 9, 10 different states. And I think over 20 different art mediums. It's kind of incredible. Every week, it is an extraordinary experience to walk the farm and hear what is coming out of the barn while you're sitting in the garden. But things are humming now, and we may have another decade in us for the Arts Foundation, and we're listening really hard about what is needed. It is about deepening relationships. We're selling out all the seats. It's not about more audience members. It's not about marketing at all. All of this is word of mouth. We only built our audience because friends and neighbors told friends and neighbors. Artists only started showing up for the artist retreat because somebody had a great experience and said, you should go do this. This will be good for you. And so we want to go, it just deepen relationships and see what is needed. So we're in a moment of feeling like we have kind of achieved our original vision, and we're listening for what it is that's needed. And our community and our artists are going to tell us what that is. Yes. And I think that it will be something around the artist retreat, because they're just extraordinary pieces are being created and birthed from orchestra compositions to novels and poetry and art pieces, and they're little seeds of things that are heading out into the world. Some of them have come back. We've hosted some world premiere musicals and theater pieces, and so I don't know at this moment. I'm in a moment of listening, and the same with my work. I'm going through a big moment of transformation from a very traditional brand strategy and brand design world to looking at a different level of human development and team development and organizational development. And I've had some beautiful long-time relationships who have trust with me and know me to bring a traditional, we need to come up with a vision and articulate it and get really clear, hey, you want to try something different? Yeah. And one of the way, and what that looked like, just as a small example, I had an organization, founders, who wanted to create an extraordinary, they had a vision about systems change for Black youth in LA, and had 1,000 ideas and an incredible skilled tool set in their tool belt. And they had so many ideas that they couldn't get funding and backing because nobody was really clear about what it was they were doing. And so they needed to get to a clear vision and a storytelling piece, and asked me if I would help them get to that vision. Well, there's a traditional way that you can do it, where we're spending months getting to understand your competitive landscape, having some workshops, building in your board and all the rest of it. And we did a 4-day gathering in Joshua Tree. I had them build a wisdom council of 10 people, 5 elders, 5 youth. We spent the first 2 days focused on the I am. Again, we're going to focus on the individual. Where am I in my life? Where am I on my journey? What is being called forth from me? What am I ready to bring to this circle and this particular work? And then the second 2 days were about the we are. So we'll weave those claimings and those offerings into our collective vision of the world we want to see. And then we literally spent the night together out on the lawn, dreaming together in ceremony to ask the universe, what do you want from us that we don't even, let's get out of our head. And
Mhm.
it was incredible what was manifested, how the whole vision kind of shifted after that. And it
Mm.
was a prototype to say, can this be really powerful for an organization to be in ceremony together, to be in this deep listening, to be in the vertical and the horizontal, to start with the individual and then bring it to the team. And it has really, really excited me. And so that's where I really am excited for my work to continue going. And I've got some extraordinary partners helping me develop some experiences to teach some of these things. And I'm helping some other brilliant people to help them bring their brilliant ideas to life, but all experiential and all from a sacred space of being together, listening, centering, and then getting into here so that we can go out into here.
Yes, God, yes. I'm over here crying. I am like crying. I am so inspired by your vision. I'm so inspired by what you're doing for
Thank you.
humanity. Like you be it, but now you doing it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's amazing. It is so, so amazing. And I feel like what really just stirred my soul was you talking about listening and asking.
Mm,
And that's I'm like my voice is trembling because that's the hardest part of the work is just really
mm,
waiting to hear from God. And that's why we feel so disconnected is we've lost our ability to hear so easily. You
yeah.
know, and so we feel like we've been left out, you know, and in those moments when I'm not like, you know, able to hear is like when I probably feel the worst. And so I just
Mm,
need to remind myself that I love that word to just listen, Aaron, just
yeah.
listen to the whispers.
That voice, yes, listen to the whispers. I love that. It is
Hmm.
there. It is always there.
Yes.
We can and do numb ourselves in so many ways,
Hmm.
from drugs to alcohol to our cell phones to social media,
Yes. Yes.
the ways that we distract ourselves, the way that we
Food,
overpack
everything.
our days,
Yes.
that we are
Busyness.
so, it's, I, no wonder we can't hear. And
Mm.
one of the things we'll see where this goes, but philosophically, almost the very first thing that happens at every single experience I do, regardless of who it's for, is to put your phone down and just be still and be quiet together, to
Hmm.
decelerate and to recenter. And it is remarkable how deeply uncomfortable that is
Yeah.
for so many, because we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to be still. But then it's like, oh wait, what's that? What's in there? Because it's
Hmm.
right here.
Hmm.
This isn't I'm what I love in the shift of this work. I used to be a consultant, and my job was to be the smartest guy in the room, which was rarely ever the case. Um, I had to get smart enough to come back and say, here is you. Here's the truth of you. How silly is that? We
Mm.
all know it. What I love about this work now is my job is to create the right container and give you the right tools for you to tap into your own wisdom and to remember, because it's all inside of you and you know it deeper and better and more authentically than I ever will. I know how to build a framework and help you in integration on the back side of it. But the big work here is giving people the tools to remember how to get back home,
Mm.
to remember how to get back to themselves, to get back to
Mm.
nature, to get back to each other, because
Mm.
all the answers are right there. They're right
Mm.
here at your fingertips.
Yes. Yes, God. I love it. This was so beautiful. And I just want to ask you really quickly to remind folks how they can get in touch with you, learn more about your beautiful endeavors, and maybe even like, you know, partner with you. How can folks do that?
Thank you for asking.
Hmm.
My personal website is chriseverett.world. And the last name Everett, Everett. You can learn about my philosophy about beauty. I have many offerings on there. I'm creating a big bundle of experiences called the Hum Experiences. You can learn about those. I'll be launching those in the next week or two. And a little bit about my community. The other website, if you want to know about the arts nonprofit, is everwoodfarmsteadfoundation.org. Come out. We have extraordinary performances all summer. It is a beautiful community and a beautiful place. And I would love to meet folks. So feel free to join me in either one of those. I would love to meet both people who want to go through the journey and people who want to, like you, how do we collaborate, coordinate, support each other in our light work, become pockets of light in this world, so that we're creating a constellation for everyone.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, Chris, for your wisdom, for your intelligence, for your knowledge, and most importantly, for your beauty. And yes, and for our listeners, for our viewers, thank you for making it to the end. This now concludes our episode of the Metabusiness Millennial Podcast. Please join us for our next episode. Until then, much love to you all. Peace. Did you really love this episode of the Metabusiness Millennial Podcast? Well, I am honored, and I appreciate you subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends. In the meantime, stay bright, my friends. Much love and light. Peace.